guys, welcome to episode 2 of Infospiridium. Today we're going to cover Maple Syrup Urine Disease. I love this disease because it reminds me of just how complicated metabolism really is and just how incredible one single mutation can be. And also it reminds me of syrup and pancakes. So yeah, best disease ever. Okay, so if you search for maple syrup urine disease on the internet, you'll either find pictures of maple syrup or you'll find cups of urine. But you can imagine that the words maple syrup and urine, when put together, would lead to something that looks like this. And some say it tastes just like maple syrup. I don't know why anyone would taste it, but the urine in people with maple syrup urine disease smells like maple syrup. It can be more viscous like maple syrup, but that's usually not truly associated with the condition. Personally, it's less of a superpower and a lot more horrifying than just peeing out maple syrup, and you'll see why in a second. So to truly understand this disease, we have to dig a little deep into common household genetics. So in a nutshell, if this is you, you have 2 copies of DNA in every single one of your cells. These are packaged into little tiny units called chromosomes, which look like this. You have 1 copy of each segment of DNA from your mom, and which was originally in her egg before you were conceived, and then 1 copy from your dad, which he carried along in the sperm, and that met the egg, combining the 2. So we each have 23 pairs of these DNA copies for a total of 46 chromosomes. Now, if I were to kill one of your cells and take out all the DNA, it would look something like this under a microscope. This is a karyotype, a visual way to look at real-life chromosomes. This karyotype belongs to a male, and let me show you why that is. If you look at here, we have a Y chromosome. In females, you'd have 2 X chromosomes. Okay, kind of just like how all these other ones look. For someone with something like Down syndrome, it would look more something like this. And do you kind of see what's wrong here? If we look at all the chromosomes, we'll see that one of them has 1 too many, and it's this guy right here, chromosome 21, or trisomy 21, when you have 3 of the same chromosome. You're supposed to have 2 instead of 3, which causes Down syndrome. Okay, so now back to maple syrup urine disease. Each chromosome has many, many genes, up to the thousands. And remember that you have 2 copies of each gene, one that you got from mom and one that you got from dad. Amongst these thousands of genes, you'll find genes for how your heart should form, how your brain should fire its neurons, how you should react emotionally when you have a bad day, and how you should digest food. Among these thousands of genes lies the one responsible for maple syrup urine disease. The genes that cause maple syrup urine disease are labeled BCKDHA, BCKDHB, DBT, and DLD. I'm not going to go into what they mean and what they do, but I've simplified this into essentially one gene labeled MSUD. Now, if you're listening to this right now and don't have MSUD, that means that you have at least 1 good copy of the quote-unquote MSUD gene. So you look either like this, or you look like this, okay? If you're the second option, it doesn't matter because even though one of your copies is broken or mutated, you have a good copy which carries the weight of the other broken gene. You don't have MSUD or maple syrup urine disease even though one of your copies is broken, okay? You only need 1 functional copy. This is because MSUD is an autosomal recessive disease. What this means is that to have the disease, you need both copies of DNA to be broken like this, okay? There are other diseases like Huntington's disease which are autosomal dominant. For these autosomal dominant diseases, you only need to have 1 copy to be messed up to have the disease. So if this was Huntington's, this would lead to Huntington's disease, this would lead to Huntington's disease, either one of them could. Because dominant ones, you only need 1 mess up. This is autosomal recessive, which means that in this case, this genotype is okay. Having 1 messed up is okay because you have 1 good gene. So remember, you can have up to 1 broken copy and still not have maple syrup urine disease. But if you have both copies broken, you have maple syrup urine disease. So no disease, again, if you have just 1, if you have both good or 1 bad and 1 good, but disease if you have both genes bad. Now, if you're the second option with 1 broken copy and you marry someone and make babies with another person who has a broken copy, you have a 1 in 4 chance of having kids with 2 broken copies and maple syrup urine disease. This gets into Mendelian genetics, which can be a tiny bit complicated if you're not well versed in basic biology and statistics, but essentially take it for what it is. Okay, so what are the MSUD genes responsible for? Why is it that if someone has 2 bad copies of the gene, that it leads to maple syrup urine disease? To get into this, we need to take a dive into nutritional biochemistry and metabolism. So bear with me. Basically, what this chart shows is what happens to essentially all food when you eat it. It could be an In-N-Out burger or a gallon of lemonade. In one way, shape, or form, your body will take what you give it and form acetyl-CoA, one of the most versatile energy molecules in our existence. And if your body can't convert it into acetyl-CoA, it'll do so into another molecule within this pathway. MSUD, or maple syrup urine disease, is when you eat something and your body can't convert it into something in this pathway. So it piles up in your blood and becomes toxic to your brain, ultimately killing you. There's a similar disease called phenylketonuria that results in a similar condition. So next time you look at like a bottle of or a can of Diet Coke, notice that on the back it says phenylketonurics, warning, contains phenylalanine. That's because they can't process phenylalanine, and it leads to a toxic buildup in the blood, and can lead to brain damage and other issues in them too. Okay, so back to MSUD, or maple syrup urine disease. Maple syrup urine disease is when you can't break down branched chain amino acids. Those are those right there in that pathway. These are isoleucine, leucine, and valine. The genes needed to break down the branched chain amino acids are supposed to be right here. But again, they're broken. With them gone, your cells can't convert them into usable forms of energy, so what happens is they stay in your blood. Once in your blood, it reaches your kidney, which filters out into, you guessed it, your urine. And thus, you basically have maple syrup urine disease. Plain and simple. I hope you guys like this video, and remember, this is meant to simplify complex medical conditions. It's not supposed to be like a source of diagnostic or therapeutic knowledge, and should not be replacing peer-reviewed medical literature or a physician. Thanks again for watching.